Hello.
Hello. I don't know
We
how
made it
many
to
people
the
are
end.
there. Hello. Hi, Jessica. Nice to
Hey,
see you.
Jessica.
Welcome to the final live show for the Graceling Readalong. I'm very sad. I've really
Always
enjoyed
bittersweet.
doing this with you.
It has
with you
been
all.
fun, yeah.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you approached us about this, Mel, because
Mhm.
I don't know when I would have reread the series. Like I had always been vaguely planning to and to continue to read the new books, but I obviously hadn't done it. So it's been great to discuss them.
And
Yeah.
I don't know when I would have read them.
Yeah.
Even though I kind of wanted to, so try it. So yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, it's been really great. Nora says hi. Hi, Nora.
Hey, Nora.
Hello.
Hi.
How is everyone in the comments today? We were just talking about extreme temperatures because Bethany is very cold over there in New York, and I'm sitting here at 17 degrees wearing a jacket.
17
It's supposed to be summer,
Celsius.
17 Celsius, and it's supposed to be summer for me, just by the way. So, to put it into the context of why is that weird. Because I have no idea what 17 degrees Fahrenheit would equal in Celsius either. So, I don't know what I just said to you without the context.
17 Celsius is, I have my handy Google thing. It's 62 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay.
That's pretty standard temperature for us. 60s is usually, because we get a lot of wind too, so I'm sure wind chill is a factor. But
yeah, I feel 60s is fall for us. 50s and 60s. It's a fall temperature.
Yeah, this is what it should be in March. For us, because obviously we go into we're the opposite of you guys.
Yeah, right. 60s is 60s Fahrenheit is nice temperature for me. I do not do well with heat.
Yeah.
I don't either. I much prefer, and I think because it's been quite warm and now it's come down, so I think that's where, and it's cold and it's rainy and overcast, and you tend to feel cooler when it's that kind of. I'm just justifying my jacket as if anyone cares.
Well, cold weather is very appropriate for the book we're covering today.
And also, you guys are sitting there in jumpers, so none of you would have even thought of anything of it if I hadn't have known it.
It's true. Except for your Australian viewers might question.
That's true. That's but they know I live in Tassie, so they're to them, Tassie's the cold place. So they're
okay. Oh, there you go.
Yeah. I'm so glad that people have enjoyed doing a read-along of something they've had on their TBR. And yes,
sometimes
indeed,
we do that.
Sometimes we do that. What a concept.
Occasionally.
What? The book I'm currently reading, which is not Seasparrow, obviously, but the book I'm currently reading, just for the context of whether you read things on your TBR, is a book that I only very recently bought, and I only bought because it's part of my book club, and I'm only reading it because it's part of my book club, which I'm glad that I am in fact reading it. And I would have borrowed it from the library because it's an Agatha Christie, so I would have definitely got it from the library. I only bought it because I found it in the secondhand store for $7 or something.
Oh, nice.
But still, I'm this is not, this whole I can only buy one book for every 5 books that I read is not going well, because I keep being it doesn't count if I know I'm going to read it immediately, which I kind of feel it doesn't, but at the same time, I'm not taking books off my TBR.
Yeah. Well, so this is why I'm trying to instead just vaguely be I'm going to try to not buy a lot of things that aren't for specific purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I am still buying, I still did the Barnes & Noble pre-order sale.
That's how they get you. Yeah. Me and my friend Julia are doing, because we both need to work on our physical TBRs. So this year we're doing a competition to see who can clear more books off our physical TBR.
Oh, see, that's smart.
So I am highly motivated. So I did really well in January, but now already in February, there's been several things that I either like needed, you know, to buy for certain reasons, or like things that I forgot were coming out this month and I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely want that. So we'll see
Yeah.
how it goes. Like I was
Yeah.
feeling pretty confident in January, but I don't know.
What prize did you get? A prize at the end if you
We hadn't talked about one because we actually borrowed this idea from a couple of other friends who are doing this, and they didn't mention a prize, so we hadn't thought of it. But like after posting our announcements, Julia was like, we should have a prize, like we should have something that we're like competing for. So we might do something like that. I don't know.
Maybe you could do like a Barnes and Noble gift card.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking, I was like, wouldn't it be funny if the prize was buying more books?
Yeah.
That would be
kind of makes sense.
It would be, yeah, that would be appropriate.
Yeah.
So
like the loser has to buy the winner a book, you know?
That's a nice idea.
Yeah.
I like that one. Yeah, that's
a
cool
that.
idea. Because then the loser can also be like, well, I'll buy. They can be strategic about it. They can be like, I'm going to buy this book that I like, that like I know Cara hasn't read, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I always, when it's like gift giving, I always like gifting my favorites to people. I mean, usually if it's on their wish list, I don't just like send it out of the blue.
Random,
usually,
yeah.
but yeah.
I do the same. Like I'll look through someone's wish list and be like, what have I actually read? What do I actually? Because I also feel like I want it to be somewhat of a connection to
right. It's like a way of making it more personal and special too.
Yeah.
Which is cool. So.
Rather than just kind of going, oh yeah, I bought your book because you like books. Yeah, well, yeah. Yes, I do. But
yeah.
Hello. Sorry, everyone. We will talk about the books at some point that we're actually reading. But,
we're just hanging out. It's fine.
We're just hanging out. I just bought a book right before the start, and I have zero intention of reading anytime soon. But it was on sale for $2.99. Yeah, exactly.
Man,
that's where it gets
sales
you.
are they get you.
And the thing is, like, it's hard to talk yourself out of them because in a way it does make sense. If like it's a book you already know you're going to want to buy, it's like, well, of course I want to spend less money on it.
Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
That's what happens. But,
yeah.
Which is what they're counting on.
I know. I try to just be more cautious about it. Like now if it's on sale, I'm like, well, let me first check and see if it's available through my library, or like, is it, I don't know. I try to, or like I now don't pre-order tour titles unless it's something I'm really, really excited about because they send me so many. So I'm like, well, let me just wait and see if I get it for free before I buy it myself.
Yeah.
That's just
sense.
Strategy. That's smart.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because I can always buy it after the fact.
Exactly. Well, I did a pre-order. Like I said, I think I said to you a while ago, I don't pre-order. And the part of the reason why I don't pre-order, well, I mean, I didn't even know I could until I started doing BookTube, and I was like, that's a thing. But anyway, part of the reason I don't pre-order is because, like, well, particularly if I do it online, where I live, there are no like Amazon or there are no fulfillment centers in Tasmania. So it's like, well, it pre-ordered, okay, great, but I'm still going to, like, I get it as quickly as if I went online and ordered it the day it came out. Like, it makes literally no difference. Yeah. So I'm just like, I pre-ordered Hellbent from Bookstore, and I did that specifically so that I could read it for your readathon, Bethany. And then, did I read it for your readathon? No, I did not. So I was like, I bought this so I could fulfill that prompt, and I didn't even.
Yep.
The next time you do the prompt, I'll have it. I'll be like, hey, I've got one.
Be ready to go.
Yes. I love it. I mean, I generally probably pre-order things because it's like a pre-order sale, like it's on sale.
Yeah.
Or there's a pre-order giveaway where they're then I'll do it. So I'm like, yeah, send me a pin and a signed book plate.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, if I could pre-order something and get a thing with it, then maybe. But also, I
guess it's hard because a lot of those are like US only, so I don't know, but there's a lot of stuff for you.
Right. Yeah. A lot of my pre-orders, like I do a lot of the pre-order incentives as well, but I think most of them are probably obviously things I'm extra excited for, but like especially if it's a book or an author that I kind of want to extra support, you know, like because like you said,
Mhm.
Bethany, it counts as a pre-order sale, which are
Yeah.
like the best kind of sales you can do
Hmm.
really if you want somebody to be able to write more books. So especially if it's like an author I really love or like a kind of book that I'm like I want publishers to do more of these,
Yeah.
then I'm much more likely to pre-order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if there's an arc I had and I really loved it and I want a finished copy,
Yes.
like I just did for Lazelle's book because I loved it, and so I pre-ordered a finished copy.
Yeah.
So good.
What is it?
I'm so curious because I'm like, oh, okay. This is so off topic, but I'm just curious if people like believe me that I love her book because I'm friends with her.
Oh, is right. What was the book? Sorry.
Oh, Delicious Monsters by
Oh.
Lizelle Sambury. It's like YA horror and it's amazing and I loved it. But it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, I'm friends with the author, but really it's six
Really, it
stars.
was
It's like
good.
one of my favorite things that I read. Like it's so good.
Yeah.
It
I
makes me
feel like
anyway.
yeah. I feel like it's immediately apparent from your content that you are a very genuine reviewer. Like, especially like you always disclose if you know the author, but
Yeah.
also like just from the things you say about the book, it's like, okay, this is obviously stuff in the book you're talking about, not like, oh, she's
Right.
so nice. I loved her book, you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I
I
think
mean, and like,
it's
yeah, like
trustworthy.
I'll probably be like slightly less critical if I have
Yeah.
criticisms of like friends' books, but I'll still give criticism. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like
Mm.
yeah.
It's I think it's natural, like if we have any personal like connection or relationship or even just like interactions with authors in other spaces, like I think most people that is going to slightly inform how you talk about a review or how
Right.
you review a book. But yeah, it's about being honest about it and not having that change the content. You might just like say it differently, you know, because you like
Right.
know them as a person. I mean, there have been authors where it's like I enjoyed their book, but it is like slightly colored by the fact that I saw them acting up on Twitter. So I'm like, it's really good, but like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, I think that's just a natural thing that humans do. Is
Yeah.
like we have
Yeah.
opinions about people.
It's true. Well,
But
and
it,
honestly, too, there have been a couple friends who I've had who've written books where I'm like, I don't know if I want to read your book because I'm not sure I'm gonna love it. And if I don't, I
Right.
don't want to review it. So, like,
Yeah.
there might occasionally be one where I'm like, I might just buy it to support you and not read it
and not
because,
read it.
Yes.
yeah,
Or just read it secretly and not mention it on
right, and not
line.
talk about it.
Yeah, it's true.
I did not read this book. La 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 la. See, that's fair as well. If you're collecting a series, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely,
that makes sense.
that makes
Mhm.
sense. So should we talk
So,
about the book that we read,
yes,
Seasparrow,
Seasparrow. Ooh,
which
that's a
is
cool
a
cover.
chunker? Yeah, this
It
is a
is a
cool. This
chunker.
is a nice cover, isn't it?
I like it.
I think this is the thickest one yet.
It is long. Yeah.
Yeah. How do people feel about it? What did you think of the writing style? Was the writing style similar, different to you? Do you have? I guess we could do 3 stars and a wish again. What are 3 things that you really enjoyed about it, and 1 thing that you thought could be improved?
Hmm.
Would anyone
I
like to?
can start. This part isn't part of my 3 things, but I think it helped that Bethany, you read it before me, and you mentioned that there's this long stretch that is like travel and a survival
Yeah.
story, which neither of
Yeah.
us is a fan of. So I was like prepared for that, which I think actually really helped me because I knew what was coming, and I also skimmed ahead to see how long I had to read that part. So all of that set me up to have a better experience. But I think another thing that helped, besides just the really short chapters, I liked that a lot. But I just freaking love Hava so much. Like I just adore her. And I was so invested in her character growth and like her healing and
Mm.
like understanding more about herself. And I was so wrapped up in her as a character, and I loved seeing like, I liked her narration a lot, that I think that kept me fairly engaged, even on like the ship parts, which I don't like ship books either. And I actually found that still pretty interesting because I just loved and cared about Hava so much. So I guess my 3 things: I loved Hava. I really liked the themes and like the things that this book was doing. And I also am really impressed at the way that like Kristen Cashore could continue a series with this book and the previous book so long after the other 3 books, and they still feel pretty cohesive to me. And even though this is my least favorite, I feel like the quality is still very good. It's just like personal taste. But my wish would be that that frozen tundra scene had been about 150 pages shorter. Like,
yeah.
like we didn't need that much of it. Like, especially since we had already had a like characters separated from the main group thing in the previous book, and we had already had the like frozen mountain journey in the first book. I'm like, why did we do this again, Kristen? But otherwise, had a good time.
I'm just going to jump on to a couple of the comments. It was epic 5 stars, says Jessica, and apparently Nora agrees. No improvements. That's amazing. I love the ship and the map. No, we needed all of it. You are wrong, Cara. The first thing I noticed was it was in first person, so surprising. Yeah, I was surprised by that too, actually. Yeah. Do you have 3 stars and a wish, Bethany?
Do I have 3 stars? Like, I might have like 3 wishes and a star. No.
Yeah.
You can do 3 wishes and a star. That's fine.
Okay.
We're not actually in school. I don't actually need to be careful of anyone's feelings.
I think the thing that I like, my star, the thing that I loved about this was the character journey and the way that Kristen Cashore kind of pulled all of the threads together by the end and talked a lot about like healing and stuff. Like, that was great. She does a good job of that. As Kara said, very much personal preference. It's very much personal preference, but like, this does many of my least favorite things. So ship books, travel books, survival books.
Yep.
That's like 3/4 of Seasparrow. And like, I'm like, only Kristen Cashore could have me go through that and still give it 3.5 stars.
Yeah.
So I mean, like,
that is in and of itself, that's pretty good praise, really. Like, you did everything honestly, I don't like, and I still enjoyed it.
And I still, like, I still had a reasonably good time. So like, it was similarly, I would say, my least favorite book in the series because of my sort of preferences. But I think what she did well, she did very well. And I do think that she does a great job of having a lot of depth to characters and really exploring difficult things. One thing that surprised me about this, and I don't know if this is a criticism necessarily, but I feel like in all of the other books, there have been multiple layers of themes that are getting explored, and I felt like there was a lot less of that in this than any of the other books. I felt like it was really more just a character journey, and there wasn't nearly as much sort of like philosophical, political, other sorts of things that she was trying to unpack, which was interesting.
Yeah, I feel like it was more like focused in on a couple of big topics, as opposed to some of the other books that kind of had, like you said, a lot of layers. Like, I feel like this one really a lot about trauma, obviously, and healing from that. And then also, like, I'm sure we'll get into like talking about like the basically weapons of mass destruction and like, you know, that kind of thing. But another big one, I think, is, I don't know, I guess it's not as big in terms of page time, but it left an impression on me, is like justice or like having revenge on someone, and how like somebody can be a horrible person, but like Hava realizing that that's still like, she still wouldn't want, like, she thought she wanted whatever that woman's name was to suffer, and even though that does happen, she's like, that doesn't actually make me feel as good as I thought, but she's still a monster, and I don't regret what I did to stop her. But I also, you know, like, I feel like that was handled really well, but I think there was a lot less like variety in the kinds of themes.
Yeah.
But
Thanks, Jessica.
Jessica enjoyed the vicarious suffering. That was her favorite.
That's so funny, Jessica.
Yeah, she was in the Discord. like Bethany, you're gonna hate this. I love it though. I'm like, thanks, great.
Thanks a lot.
What everybody wants to hear right before starting a 600-page book.
Right. Oh God.
Yeah.
I gave it 3.5 stars as well. For the very similar reasons to the two of you. I don't particularly have feelings about survival stories or travel or ship stories one way or the other. But it was just, I was agreed that it was a bit too long. It really didn't need to have that much. I'm glad she touched on everything she touched on, and it was important for Hava's healing. I think that the journey was long, but at the same time, you can make a journey long without actually making your readers have to experience the length
be there for all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I did think that it was, I agree that it, again as well, that she didn't do as much variation of topics, but I felt like it was interesting. I mean, I loved all the topics she did touch on, and the nuance of trauma and recovering from trauma. And also like realizing how trauma has affected you, like not just recovering from it, but actually having to come to terms with it and actually having to kind of say, oh, wait, I'm reacting this way because of this thing that happened to me. And actually my reactions, while entirely valid and justified, aren't necessarily healthy or good. I thought that was really interesting. And I thought it was really interesting the way she did, when she did touch on some of the bigger topics, political topics and things, she did that in a way that still focused in on Hava and how it affected Hava, and like the comparison between like vengeance and justice, and like you said, what the difference between what a person can do to get vengeance or justice versus what a political figure can do. So like Bitter Blue herself, for her, has to, she went through everything that she went through in Bitter Blue, and she had to figure out how to recover from what happened to her and what her father did, but also help the country recover. And the difference between figuring out, how do I come to terms with what happened to me or what happened to my sister or what happened to, but at the same time, like acknowledge that in a position of power, that I have to, like she says to Hava, I can't just let you get away with, like Jackie hit Kira and I had to punish him. Like I can't just let you get away with it just because she did it to you. Like anyone in my kingdom could come and say that to me, and like I can't. And of course Hava immediately, you just don't like me, you just don't care. But yeah, like I thought that was interesting, that conversation, that kind of looking at what revenge is versus what justice is, versus personal versus political. And
and
she did warn you, it's true.
I also think Kristen Cashore did such a good job of like not over explaining things like about Hava's journey, because like there are so many moments, especially in the earlier part of the book, where like the reader knows that what Hava is experiencing is PTSD. And she's like, she knows that she's scarred from what happened, but like she's not really, like the way that she'll think about things, she's like that story about how her mother would just like repeat how she loved her because that was the thing that like she needed to focus on. And it's like she couldn't even remember her name, but she remembered that she loved her. But like by doing the things that she had to do to protect Hava, it meant that she was never even like mentally present for her. Like all of that, and then all of that about like Hava realizing that like the gift her mother gave her was being invisible. Like all of that just got me like so emotional. And I love that Kristen Cashore trusted the readers to like kind of put those pieces together as Hava did. Like I don't know if I'm explaining this well, but like, you know, sometimes there's like a really big character arc and it'll almost like sum it up for you.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
it's like Hava had those moments of realization and there were some really great lines, you know, like the one about like love is hope for other people and all of that. Like all of that felt very genuine and natural. And I really liked that. Like, because of course Hava's not going to understand that everything that happened to her was abuse. Like she's starting to.
Right.
And by the end of the
Mhm.
book, I think she understands a lot more. But yeah, I just thought that was really,
Yeah.
really well done.
Yeah.
I think this is an interesting thought as well. There are a few
Yeah,
things.
I
Few
kind of missed
perspectives.
having more perspectives, but yeah. With what you were saying, Kara, I think something that really stuck out to me with this was her having to accept and like come to terms with the fact that she was hurt by her mom, that even though she
Mm,
knows intellectually that her mom was doing the best she could for her, that doesn't take away from the fact that her mom wasn't the mom that she needed or wanted, and that hurt her. And I think that's a really powerful thing. And I think,
mm,
I think it's really relevant to like a lot of times like kids whose parents are domestic abuse victims, where like their parents might be doing the best that they can to protect them, but still are neglecting them or are not the parent that they deserve to have,
mm,
and
Yeah.
that can be
And
hard.
I feel like that's another example of like both of these things can be true. It's like
mm.
Hava's mother was doing the best she could, but Hava also
Yeah.
deserved better. And
Yeah.
kind of
Mhm.
like with the like revenge and justice thing is like Hava can be absolutely sickened by some of the things that she had to do or that other characters had to do, but she's also like I would have to like I would do it again. That's the only
Yeah.
choice that we had. And
Mm,
I like that there's a lot of those examples in this series of like we can admit that this is morally wrong, something that no one should have to
Mhm.
do, but also we have to do this because
yeah.
the
Yeah.
alternative is worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this comment. Um,
Yes.
thing. It's interesting. You can see how
Yes.
Hava tries to parent the foxes. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that that is actually, a powerful thing just in general. I mean, even for people who didn't go through this degree of trauma, like, I think, like, I've talked to my therapist about that, like, sometimes, like, parenting your children is healing yourself.
Mm.
It's almost like you're parenting yourself by parenting your children the way that you in ways that you needed. And yeah, I think you do kind of see that happening with Hava and how she is caring for the foxes.
Yeah.
And I think it's also paralleled with the way that Hope, the fox Hope, initially didn't want to have anything to do with the babies, obviously because of her own trauma and her own um,
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah.
And then it's not until one of the foxes dies that she kind of realizes, oh, like I
Yeah.
need to be a mother. And then again, that's also paralleled with, like you were saying, Cara, with the way that Harbour starts to kind of think about Kara and what Kara went through and why she did those things. And like you say, she thinks about that in comparison to her own mother and kind of realizing that like she did the wrong thing and she needs to be brought to justice, but at the same time she did the wrong thing because she didn't feel like she had a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like I thought there were a lot of really interesting parallels.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
absolutely. Yeah,
yes, that was rough.
that was really hard.
I like too that in letting Kira go, Hava manages to make the foxes safe. You know, like
Mm,
I don't know. I feel like that makes it probably for Hava as well, but even just for the reader, it doesn't feel as much like, well, she's getting away with it. You know, you just let her go. Is like she
Yeah.
was like Hava was like, I don't want her execution on my conscience, so I'm gonna use her to like make the people and the animals I care about safe,
mm,
and then get her out of here. Like I
yeah,
like
Yeah.
that she could still have kind of a productive solution. You know.
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. I love the foxes too.
Too.
I just They were so. Oh, I just love I love the way that like she's writing. I mean, obviously they have thoughts, so it's a little bit more than just kind of pets or whatever. But like she's
Right.
even when she's writing about animals, she can still give them such interesting personalities, and like every single one of the foxes had such different personalities, and it was just really, I loved them. I thought they were so cute, and
Yeah.
just the way that she was able to use those foxes to kind of develop so much of the different storylines, and it was really well done.
I assume we're in spoiler territory. Is that
Yeah, I'm assuming anyone that is
that's kind of what I was
here as
thinking as
well.
I did not expect the reveal that Hope was LV or like whoever the person was in the journal. And I don't know why. I usually pick up on that stuff, but for some reason I was not thinking it was going to be one of the foxes. Actually, I was really scared for a while. I'm like, please don't be Linny. I really like Linny. Like, please don't be a traitor. But yeah, I think the foxes were like really well done characters in their own right.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I love the headstrong. Yes.
Yes.
Very much.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
love that it's almost through Moth that Harbour starts to realize how she's behaving. And like I love the line at the end when she's on the ship and her and Leal are working together to try and come up with a way to make Moth be a nice tyrant. And it's like she's come to the realization that I'm not going to change this animal, but like maybe I just need to help her to like realize that you can be the big boss, but you can be nice to each other at the same time.
I love those moments of realization from Hava where she's like watching Moth do whatever the heck she wants, and she's like, "Is this how Bitterblue and Gideon feel all the time?" It's like,
yeah. I love this. Love that too. My favorite fox is when Moth asks Hava, "Isn't Hope mother your mum?" I thought that was so funny. That is so how kids think, isn't it? But
yes.
Like, they just like it makes perfect sense to them. This is my mum, so it must be who else
everyone's
would be your
mum.
mum? Like
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also never got tired of Hope calling Hava my girl. Like every time she said that, it was just like
it was so sweet.
Like the things, Hope's storyline is rough.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I'm glad it wasn't just me who didn't.
I didn't guess it either. I didn't see it coming at all.
No.
And then when she said Linta, I still didn't. I assumed that it was to do with Harbour having mentioned Linta herself. I thought Hope had just.
Yeah, the only reason I was worried it was Linny is because like he was one of the only characters we knew whose name started with an L, and I liked him, and I was like, please don't be the surprise bad guy.
Okay, guess Hope was LV and then okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Interesting.
Yeah, I didn't guess it either.
She didn't guess it either. Oh, you are very, very smart.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's an example of a really excellent twist where like it can be surprising, but it also, when you know it, it's like that makes sense because of all these other things that we already know. Like it wasn't like I'm surprised because this came out of nowhere.
Yeah. But also, like you said, it can also be guessable. Like at least one person here gets that. And I really liked. I mean, now that I'm talking about it, I'm like, maybe I need to bump it up a bit because I actually did. There were elements that I really enjoyed, and it took a long time to get through it, but at the same time, what I was reading was really interesting.
If it was like 200 pages shorter, it would get a higher rating.
Yeah.
It was a little bit of a slog.
I mean, that's the thing is like I really enjoyed the last quarter of the book.
Yeah.
But I just can't give it more than what I gave it.
I think if I hadn't been prepared for that slog in the middle, I think I probably would have given it lower. I ended up actually giving it 4 stars, which is a testament to I think how good a writer Kristen Cashore is, because like we've been saying, it's like this has some of my least favorite things all at the same time.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed it. I think like, yeah, the fact that I loved Hava so much and the fact that I was prepared for that really long part in the middle, I think is kind of what pulled me through.
Yeah.
Another
I
thing I
like
love
Hava.
about,
I don't think she's
yeah.
my favorite of the characters though either. I don't
Mm.
know, and I don't know if it's just me. This feels younger than the rest of the books. Did anyone else feel that way? Like this, it just, and I don't know, maybe it's because it was in first person, but it felt more YA to me than any of the other books.
I think to me, it felt like a characterization thing for Hava because, for
Hmm.
one thing, she is younger
She is
than I
young, yeah.
think some of the other characters, but also I
Yeah.
think like she hasn't really been, I don't know, like socialized almost like in the same way. Like I feel like she's still kind of getting used to like being around people. So like when she's talking to some of the sailors, and even after she starts making friends with them, she's like, I don't know how to talk to people. Like
Yeah.
so I think it felt like a personality thing for Hava, but I
agree.
do feel like it felt younger, but I think deliberately is what it read like to
I mean,
me.
I think you're probably right, but I think because she was our only perspective character,
Mm,
it read, whereas like Winterkeep, it was a mix, right? Because you had
mhm.
multiple perspectives, so you got characters that felt older and characters that felt younger. So overall it was like, I don't know, it just, which is fine.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not my favorite version of her doing this,
Yeah,
basically.
that's
It's,
fair enough.
Yeah.
you know,
I think socially young is a good way to put it. It's like not that
Yeah.
she's unintelligent or anything. It's
yeah,
just like she hasn't had a lot of life experiences that
sure.
weren't like horrible and like
Mm.
completely isolating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
I
I think it
mean,
makes a lot of I think it makes a lot of sense for her. I just think I probably would have enjoyed it better if there had been like another perspective that
yeah.
added a
Mhm.
different layer to it and there was less of the travel.
Mm.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think also one of the things that I really loved about Hava is that she's one of those characters who is like very closed off and very prickly, but
Mhm.
for one thing, you understand like it's very justified why she is that way because we know what has happened to her. But also
Yeah.
I feel like even though she can be really nasty and unpleasant to people, it it's not like unpleasant to read about her for me.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, it's kind
Yeah.
of like something that I know, Bethany, you've said this too. Like Sylvia Moreno Garcia can do that, where like characters can be unpleasant, but I do not feel like it's unpleasant reading them. And like
Yeah.
that's kind of how it felt like to me. Because I feel like a lot of times when authors do characters like Hava, even if it's like very understandable why they are the way they are, it can sometimes just not be an enjoyable experience to read somebody
Mhm.
being so like self-destructive and like nasty to people who care about them and all of this.
Mm.
Whereas for whatever reason, the like formula worked for me really well with Hava. Um, I don't know exactly why. I can't always like pin down why I think it works in one character and not in another, but for whatever reason, it worked for me in Hava.
I think Kristen Cashore is just really good at that nuance of that thing of why it's
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
And like you said, sometimes other authors do that. They try to give you an example of why this happened. But just Kristen Cashore is just good at nuance. She's just really good at getting to the heart of a character. And also I think the way that Hava was, because we were in Hava's head, we were able to see how she was coming to realize certain things about
Yes.
herself, and it didn't change her I liked that as well. It didn't change her reactions. Like as she starts to realize that, oh, maybe my mum didn't like, she did the best she could, but maybe it wasn't the best that I needed, and maybe
Yeah.
this is why I'm experiencing, this is why I behave the way I do, so on and so forth. But like it didn't necessarily change that she would react that way. Like even when she's on the ship at the end of the book, you still see that she reacts that way. Her first reaction is the reaction she's always going to have, and then she kind of later kind of goes, "Oh, I did it like this because of this, didn't I?"
Yeah, she ends up becoming much more self-aware, and I like that. Yeah, like one of the comments, right, she does
Yes.
apologize, and she does continually try to do better, and I think
Yeah.
especially I like too that the characters that she's interacting with who are like the ones we like, you know, like Lenny or like Bitter Blue or something, it's like they kind of know where Hava's coming from. And so even when Hava in that moment is not realizing like I'm snapping at you because I'm very worried about the people I care about.
Yeah.
It's like the people that she's talking to will sometimes kind of get what's going on. And so I think that kept it like, even though there is still definitely conflict between them, I think that kept it from feeling like almost like a miscommunication thing because like they are kind of understanding each other. It's just like they're working on it.
Yeah. It's not a miscommunication. Like, it's an actual miscommunication thing as opposed to how the trope gets used, which drives me up the wall. Like, they actually misunderstand each other.
Becoming a better emotional communicator.
Yeah. Like, we actually misunderstood each other, but because we were able to work around and think about what we were trying to get across, we were able to actually communicate. Unlike, like, miscommunication trope does my head in romances because it's just like, this is not a miscommunication. This is I refuse to have a conversation. That's not miscommunication. That's just being an idiot. Sorry that it's taken me so long to get to this comment, but I thought this was interesting as well. Something interesting I read on Kristen Cashore's blog is that the word count is the same as the other books. But because of the short chapters, the page number is higher.
I love the short chapters.
But it feels a lot longer.
It does,
because of the pacing.
Yeah.
I think Stephanie's just like, oh my God, I'm never getting over this.
I'm never getting out of the tundra.
But why did I have to go through the tundra with her? Why did we in the tunnels so long?
Well, it's funny because I was like, oh, I think we're going to get off the boat. Oh, no.
Be careful what you wish for. Yeah. Yeah. If the chapters had been long or even like regular length, I would have struggled. Like, I don't think I would have, like, it felt so much more readable to me because the chapters were nice and short and punchy. And it felt like it worked for Hava's character too. Like, her narration to me made sense that it would happen in like these really short like chapters and moments. But
yeah, I'm glad you had such a good time with it, Jessica. I know you really loved it. That's great. That's awesome.
I really, now that, again, like we're talking about it and I'm realizing, there are actually probably more things I liked about it that I didn't like. It's still, I don't know which is my favorite, Bitter Blue or Winterkeep, but it's one of those two.
Winterkeep is my favorite.
But this one,
yeah, Winterkeep's.
I like Hava's character. I like the way she was written. I like all the nuance of yeah.
I also love Lenny. What a sweetheart. Like,
he was so lovely.
I enjoyed him so much. And I really liked him and Hava, like this like uneasy friendship, and maybe they like each other, but they both have issues, so they're like working on that. Like, I just really liked that. I thought that was done like, again, like with a lot of care, and it was nice to have like things like that and things like with the foxes, and like we had some like nice little like rest moments in between all of the like really intense stuff, which I appreciated.
I am just curious to see if she's going to write more.
Yeah. I didn't feel like it was an end of a series necessarily. Like, I don't necessarily feel like it has to continue, but at the same time, I wouldn't be mad about it.
It's like, I feel like the place we're left with, like, what Bitter Blue is going to do about the Zilphium and all of that, like, I could see her leaving it as, like, that's the end. Like, we know like, their hopes for the future, and that's kind of it.
Yeah.
But there's also, there's a lot of, like, unanswered questions, like, places that I think you could go with that.
The book is amazing, not for the fantasy plot, but for the emotional journey. I would give it 4 stars, but I wouldn't recommend it to everyone.
Right.
I definitely agree with that. Definitely.
Yeah. I think, like, if you've read the series up to this point, I definitely think it's worth reading. But I also
Yeah.
I think it's good that this is not like the first book in the series. Like I
Oh,
think
yeah,
this would,
yeah.
I think it'd be
Yeah.
a hard to start. Like
It would definitely, yeah. I feel like there's more to this. Still more.
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
I wonder whose perspective we would get next, because we've had, obviously we started, like, I know that this is the first one that was first person, but we started mostly with Katz's perspective, and then we went somewhere else entirely. But for the last 3 books, we've stuck pretty closely to Monsey and Bitter Blue. And like, even obviously we were in different parts of the world, but we've stuck to
and also that other continent though.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had, what was her name? The other girl.
Lovisa.
Lavisa.
Is it Lavisa?
Lavisa in Winterkeep, yeah.
It would be interesting to get a book that was Lovisa and Hava as perspectives, where they sort of like reconnect in some way. I don't know. That would be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like that Fire is still around. Like she's like barely in the books, but every time we see her, I'm like, hi.
Yeah, I felt the same. Yeah. I felt the same way. And I loved Brigand's like cameo in this one as well.
Yeah.
With the whole like what was it, over a coat or something? It was
Also, isn't Bitter Blue having a kid?
I don't think so. No.
Oh, they
had a pregnancy scare.
Have been,
yeah.
Which I
have to say, I agree with Hava. That was irresponsible.
I agree with Hava too, and I agree with when they both kind of realized. Like I thought that was all handled really well, because so often anything to do with pregnancy is just like, oh look, surprise pregnancy, everyone's so happy and it's amazing. Which they did in, which book is it? Go So Dark and Lonely, not that particular book, but that series. They did I don't know if this is spoilers, but it was the same thing. Like they were traveling and there was war and it was all this stuff, and it was like, oh, this is so amazing. I'm like, no, it's not.
No, it's not.
This is not a good timing. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I did really like the way that she dealt with that in this is really. And like, yes, Bitter Blue and Gideon both agreed with Hava. But like I like the way that they all were like, it wouldn't be good. No one's saying this would be a good thing.
That's like one of the instances where like Hava handles something in the most like aggressive way possible, but it's like she's also right though.
She's also right. She's not wrong.
She would be so irritating to like actually try. Like that's, you can see Bitter Blue like just loves her dearly, but it's just like, oh my god.
Yeah. But the other thing though, and this is one of the things that I feel like with some of my favorite series that like follow different main characters, is like I feel like one of the marks of good writing for those is when you see the characters, like main characters from another book, from somebody else's perspective, and they're still like the characters you love, but you're also like, I am on this main character's side more, like because I love Bitter Blue and Gideon, but there were many times in this book where I was like, Hava's right, like stop what you're doing, like or whatever, like when they were like things that they were just like not handling very well with her, and it was like simultaneously I still love Bitter Blue and Gideon and I understand where they're coming from, but also like that doesn't change the fact that I am Team Hava 100% right now. Like
I love it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely.
I do not know astrology, so I don't know, but I'll go with Mel.
I don't really follow astrology that much these days.
I know, I know a little bit about my own thing, but I am not well versed.
The only thing I know is like, so I'm an Aries, and every description I've seen of an Aries is like, that is not me at all. It doesn't make sense.
Oh yeah.
I have quite a few friends I still am friends with them, but when we were teenagers, they were very big into astrology and would explain lots of things about each other. And so, like, there are some star signs I know nothing about, but there are some star signs I'm like, yeah, that's totally. I have some friends who are Virgos, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know. She's a Virgo.
Yeah, I don't know things about it, but do I read mine? Yes. When I like when it would come up in a magazine, would I look at mine? Yes. Because it was fun. Or like those memes. Do you guys remember when that was like a big meme trend where like the signs as, and it was like book things or like whatever, like those I loved. So it's like, do I know things? No, but I have a good time reading about myself, I guess.
A friend of mine, one of my friends.
You know what? Okay. Funny thing, because I was just curious. I looked it up. My husband's an Aries too, and also is not like what you normally think.
Yeah.
Which I think is
So
interesting.
that's when like proper astrologists would say, well,
Like
what is
your
their
moon
rising sign and what is
and
their
like,
moon sign?
yeah.
Because see, I don't know what my rising sign is, but I'm a double Pisces. My moon and my sun are double Pisces. And yeah, I have to have a fire in there somewhere because I can't be triple water. Like I'm very watery, but I couldn't be completely water. I have a little bit too much get up, like feistiness.
I think I have this app somewhere that Mara convinced me to download once. Oh yeah, here. It tells, and you have to like put in your birth information, and it tells you like whatever. Okay. So yeah, because I'm a Taurus, but I have a Libra moon and Leo ascendant. I don't really know what all of this means, but it's like
I know a little bit,
but
about
I do
Taurus,
feel like
do
feel like I'm a Taurus. Like I do feel like it really.
But this is also one of those things. It's like, okay, are you a Taurus or are you just an oldest child? Because like there are things about like Taurus where I'm like, well, that's me, but I think that might be eldest daughter things like coming out.
So maybe I am very Pisces. It's just that I'm the eldest child, so I've had to adapt some of those Earth fire sign.
It's true. It's like, am I a Taurus or am I an eldest child who's neurospicy? Like, I mean, I don't know.
Right. I love that. Neurospicy. That's so cute. I love that.
I've heard people use that on TikTok for people, which I like, because especially if you like don't have an official diagnosis for things. Yeah. Like I like it as like a
like there's a little something extra, but we don't know what it is.
It's like there's definitely something. We just don't necessarily have official recognition of what.
I'm going to tell my partner. He is pretty certain that he also doesn't have a diagnosis, but he's pretty certain that he has ADHD. So I'm going to tell him that he's neurospicy.
Yeah,
he'll like that one because he loves the whole like, do I have? This is just the flu. It's not a spicy flu, and blah blah blah. So. Anyway, we have wandered rather off topic.
Yeah. Okay.
Does anyone? It is totally fine, but I just thought that I might see if anyone else had anything about the book they wanted to discuss, or anything about future books. Does anyone have any predictions? Anything they really want to see if she is writing? What else there would be?
I agree that Lovisa and Hava would be really interesting main characters.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know who else we would follow unless it was somebody completely new that we hadn't like met before. But I hope she does write more books. I have really been really impressed with like the new ones that have come out in the last couple of years. Like I can't imagine how difficult that is to like continue a series. Like wasn't it like more than a decade? Yeah. So yeah, I hope we get more. I was like very, I don't want to say pleasantly surprised because it's not like I thought they were going to be bad, but I know that some people did not care for Winterkeep and they thought like the original ones were way better. So I was a little curious, but I really enjoyed them.
I think Winterkeep is my favorite.
Yeah. Jackie was indeed the worst. I also hated Jackie.
Yes.
He did like 2 nice things near the end, but still kind of the worst.
No.
I agree with that too. I loved Annette and Nabby's role as well. Yeah.
Annette frustrated me sometimes, but I'm also like, I understand why you're lying to people.
Again, it does make sense. And I also thought that was really interesting, that whole conversation with Hava, and the whole thing of like following orders versus like it's perfectly okay to ask why, but now is not the time to have that conversation. Like, and I'm sure as a parent, Bethany, you probably completely understand those moments. Certainly as a teacher, I do, where it's like, I just need you to stop. Yes, I will give you an explanation. No, I'm not being a tyrant. I just need you to stop now.
Follow directions
Follow
first, and I will
directions
explain
first,
them
and we'll-
later.
Yeah. Sorry?
Would you like an egg for lunch?
Sure.
Because we've got a bunch of meat, but you don't.
Oh, okay, sure.
Couple of eggs.
Thank you. Sorry, that was just, yeah, thank you. That's just my mum coming to offer me some lunch.
Love it.
Because I'm at my parents' house today, because it's part of the long story that Cara and I were talking about before you jumped on. So it changes the plans and stuff, but basically my sister has flown in from Queensland today, and we were going to go out for brunch before I did this, and then I was going to rush back to mum and dad's to do it because they live closer to where we were going to brunch. But then their car broke down, and then for various reasons we had to cancel brunch, and then the car broke down. So I went and got my sister from the airport and drove her to mum and dad's place. So I'm at mum and dad's place, and mum has just offered me lunch, which is very nice.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the backstory as to what on earth my mother was doing. Annette and Navi were awesome. Yes, they were. Yes, and that's
I agree.
in the moment appreciate that. And that's what I mean about like, it's not that she was lying to people, but it's like sometimes you don't need all the facts in order,
right, and it would actually be worse.
Like,
yeah,
you know, like I don't need to tell the children that there was a giant spider in the classroom that just before they came back in after recess that I got rid of. Like, I'm not lying to them if I don't tell them that happened, but like, or, you know, they see me do something, they're like, what were you doing this? I'm like, oh, just moving this thing because it was in my way. Like, they don't need to know that I was acting, because the whole class is going to freak out. And in fact, I've just managed the situation, you know, it's like, yeah.
And I appreciate that when Hava made it clear that, like, okay, we're at the point where I like more information would actually be good. I like that then Annette was like, okay, I'm gonna tell you the truth now, but here's why you can't tell other people. Like, I think like, especially as the book went on, I was like, okay, now I understand why you were lying to Hava the whole time. Like, but
because like Hava was one of the people that you really couldn't trust with that information. Not because you couldn't trust with her with that information, but because like I don't need everyone freaking out about this thing, and Hava's going to tell everyone because she will think that the worst thing I've done is not tell everyone. Whereas what actually the worst thing I've done is tell everyone, because I was managing the situation and now I can't anymore because everyone's freaking out or giving me their opinion. You know, it's like, sometimes you just have to have the captain. Like, sometimes that's the whole reason why I have this job and you don't.
And that's another thing, is I feel like you just made me think of that, Mel. Is like, I feel like we're also seeing Hava kind of realize throughout the book, like, okay, sometimes decisions are not all bad or all good. Like, because she's like, lying is bad. You shouldn't lie to people and you shouldn't deceive them, which we obviously know that she has a lot of very good reasons for feeling that way. But then eventually she's kind of like, all right, sometimes you should not have all the facts. Like,
and also, like, yes, lying is bad, and but at the same time, like, imagine if her mother had never lied and hidden her. Like, sometimes, like you said before, Cara, like, sometimes you make bad decisions for the right reasons, and you have to make those bad decisions. Like, I can't even imagine.
Well, sometimes there are no good choices.
Right.
Exactly. Like, I can't even imagine. Like, I keep comparing Annette to being a classroom teacher. I mean, I don't have the kids' lives literally in my hands. Like, you know, it doesn't actually, like, yes, it matters at the time, but they're not going to not go home if I don't do a certain thing. Whereas, like,
I think
it's like I tell my kids with like lying stuff, I'm like, okay, like, is there ever a good time to lie? Yes. What is it if like somebody's gonna die or get hurt if you don't? Like,
right.
Yes.
Right.
Otherwise, should you be lying? No.
And there's also, like, I think a different, like there is a difference between lying and omission. Like, everything that I'm talking about and what we were talking about with Annette, it's like, I don't need to tell you this thing that would only result in badness if I did tell you, because it's like, You don't need
Yeah.
to know about that.
Well,
Like,
and I feel like even from a certain perspective, kind of like you're saying, it doesn't feel dishonest when you realize why she was doing it, because like her job is to keep people safe. If she told them exactly what was happening, that would be much harder to do. So it's
yeah.
actually the more ethical thing to like conceal that information from people.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they're good mentors. Yes, I agree. They really understood Harbour.
The only other thing, do we want to maybe talk real quick about a couple of highlights from the whole series, if we had any? Because I
Yeah,
was just thinking
absolutely.
about that, and I mean, besides like I always love Kristen Cashore's main characters, like always. She is 5 for 5 with me. But also like I think one of my favorite things is what we've been talking about, is that she does such a good job of like throughout the whole series, it's like you can have these two opposite things that are both true. Like you can choose, like especially I was gonna say especially with Katza, but actually all of the main characters, it's like you can do horrible things for good reasons, and it can be the most right choice, but it can also make you feel horrible and not be okay, but you have to do it anyway. So I just really like that. I feel like that's a hard balance to get right, and I think she does a good job with it.
This is a good point. Yeah, the lying for minute story is a good juxtaposition with the Gideon bit of lying about their relationship. Yeah. And how that actually did do harm to Harbour, them not telling her.
Yeah.
But that's also like, that brings up another point about like being keeping secrets versus being deceitful. Like, you know, and right to privacy. Like, I don't have children, so it's a bit difficult for me to say, but like, you don't necessarily want your kids to feel like they have to actually tell you everything. Like their private thoughts are allowed to be.
Yeah, to a certain extent. I mean, I think the tricky thing is that what you want to avoid, like a big thing that we want to avoid, is like the opportunity for like abuse or grooming. And so because of that, what we say is, in our family we don't do secrets, just surprises, because a surprise is something that you're eventually going to like tell somebody about, but we
Yeah.
don't like keep secrets necessarily.
Yeah,
Which, I
okay.
mean, like, it's different from like, you know, there might be things I don't tell them because I'm like, that's not kid appropriate or something like
Yeah.
that. Like, you know, and I wouldn't like make them tell me everything they think, of course, but like that is something that we
Yeah,
talk about a
because you
lot
don't
for
want someone
those.
to tell them, keep this a secret, and then
Keep
it
this
be
a
like
secret
really
from your yeah,
harmful. Yeah,
right.
but
That's a
like
really good
at
way
this,
to
yeah, that's a
differentiate
really
those.
good way, because a surprise. Like,
because a
the
surprise is
connotation
something.
of surprise is a good thing. Like, eventually, you know, you can tell mum and she'll be like, oh, that's awesome. You know, like, you made
Like a
me,
surprise,
you phoned me
yeah.
this present and I didn't know you were making it.
Right.
And like,
Like
yeah.
doing things for Christmas. Yeah, like surprises are fine because you're eventually going to tell, but secrets are different. So yeah, we like, that's kind of how we handle that. But
yeah.
And I guess it also does depend on like the age of the people as well. Like, your children are under 10, aren't they? Like, they're quite young. Whereas if they were kind of in their late teens, I guess you'd be expecting not so much secrets, but you'd expect them to have more of their own stuff going on that they wouldn't necessarily tell you about, and that would be okay, because it's like, oh well, you're just off being a teenager kind of thing.
Yeah, I think with Hava, it felt like the reason she was so hurt is not like they should tell her everything, but like it felt like maybe they weren't trusting her with something important, and also they kind of made her feel like childish. And then when she gets upset about that, they're like, well, you're kind of acting childish right now. And like, you know, that's one of the most frustrating things ever, is when you're upset at someone, they're like, well,
this is why.
And it's like, okay, but I'm upset because this had already happened. So I feel like with Hava, it was more understandable that she would be upset. Like, I don't know. I also get what Bitter Blue's like. She's like, we thought that at that point you knew and it didn't matter. Like, sorry. So like, I get that too, but I don't know.
This is really interesting as well. In Winterkeep, we see Bitter Blue's fears about telling Harbour, and then we get Harbour's side. Yeah.
I was like, I knew this immediately. Why is
Yeah.
no one telling me?
Yeah.
Well, and also she's the spy master. Well, not spy master, but
Right,
she's
like
the spy.
this is
Like,
her job is to know.
you really think you
everything.
could keep that a secret?
Yeah.
Like, you literally get her to do this all the time.
Yeah.
I like how they do have the conversation about it's hard to talk to.
Yes.
Yes.
Nuance
Yes.
again.
Absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, like you said again, it's like this doesn't excuse them, and like almost like they knew that it wouldn't excuse them, but they still, you know, there's still an explanation. Like sometimes we do the wrong thing for the right reason, but it still is the wrong thing.
Yeah.
As well. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I think in general in the series, she does such a great job of dealing with trauma and the fallout of it. Like she just handles things so sensitively and with nuance and like care. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also really like how part of what she deals with in a lot of the books is like violence against women or like feminist issues, and it's done in a way that is not almost like sensationalizing them. And also I really appreciate the way that she writes so many different kinds of female characters.
Yeah.
Like I know we talked about with Graceling that there was like just a little bit of the like not like other girls thing. And I feel like even though that is still true in the context of all of the books, it's like, okay, so this is like a Katza thing. This is not like a this is how
Right.
Kristen Cashore feels about women who wear dresses, you know? So
Yeah.
I mean, I know that's a trope that bothers me more than it bothers most people, but I just really appreciate that that wasn't a thing here.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
And they have
And
good relationships with other women, you know, like
the
there's
female friendships, I love them. Yeah.
Even Katza, who is not like other girls, can
Right.
still have
Yeah.
those relationships with more like other girls kind of thing. Yeah.
Which I think is okay because they're you know, there are women like Katza. It's just becomes a problem if that's like
if that's all
the
you write.
entirety or
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely. I feel like we should probably wrap this up soon because I just realized that it's 2:10 for me and apparently my mother's making me lunch, so I should probably
Yes.
I'm a kept woman today. But yes, if anyone has anything else they want to add before we sign off, please do so in the comments, obviously. I am kind of sad that this is coming to an end. I've really enjoyed
Write more books, Kristen Cashore.
I know, right? Come on.
Get on it.
really fun.
I really enjoyed the books. I thought they were amazing, but I really enjoyed chatting with everybody and having my amazing co-hosts. And it's just been a really fun group. So thank you. I think we're all, maybe not all of us, I think a lot of us are Patreons of Bethany's, so we can continue our lovely conversations.
Graceling breakout group. Like
Yeah. Well, you know, February we're reading That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon, which should be fun.
I'm actually very nervous about that.
Why?
This is so out of my it's so out of my comfort zone.
It'll be fun.
Well,
I mean,
sure
it's like a
it'll be
fantasy romance.
Oh
It'll
yeah.
be...
I
actually just started it because I'm like, I feel like I need something light in my life right now. And so I'm like, let me try this. Because...
It looks like fun. I think it's going to be fun. It's just out of my comfort zone. So I'm just be like,
it'll be all right. So far, it's like very kind of tongue in cheek. It's funny. So
nice.
I just want to say I really like this last comment here. I like how all the women are portrayed as strong, even though they are all different. And we have good examples of respectful, supportive men.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's another thing. I love all of the male leads in her books. I think they're all so well done. I guess not the one in Bitter Blue that none of us really had any feelings about. But other than that,
other than that,
Like I still think Gideon is one of the sharpest like character turnarounds. Like he
Oh,
was
yeah.
such a piece of
Yeah.
shit like in the
Yeah.
first one.
Oh my god, he was so
He
annoying.
grew. He really
Graceling.
grew.
He grew so much. He had all that time to think about himself. Like,
Yeah.
Right? Exactly. And being dislauded is, I don't think I'm saying it right.
Yeah.
Being struck off the whatever,
Yeah.
the peerage.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for this, I probably wouldn't have read.
Oh,
Yeah,
yay. Yeah, this was
I'm
fun,
happy too.
Mel.
It was
was
lots of
so
fun.
So much fun.
So thank you so much for everyone for joining us and joining me in my original, hey, do you want to do this thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for
But
doing
yeah, once again, I will advertise if you have not joined Bethany's Patreon, you should do that because it's awesome. And because then we can keep having our conversations. Yes,
Thanks,
I
Mel.
agree. Gideon's character.
Book club
was-
tomorrow night.
Book club
right.
tomorrow night. Exactly. Same
Yeah.
time, different channel. I think I put Bethany and Kara's channels in the description. I usually do. So please subscribe to them. And if you haven't subscribed to me yet, please do that as well. But yeah. Thank you all very much. And yeah, hopefully talk to you very soon.
Bye.
Bye.